My father worked this land until his hands gave out. When he passed, I made him one promise. I would never let it go. For 20 years, I kept it. The ranch was an investment or a tax strategy or a future development opportunity. It was his life's work, and then it became mine. I ran it, maintained it, and built my own life around it. That was enough. Then the letter arrived. It came on HOA letterhead, professionally formatted, carefully worded, the kind of document designed to feel inevitable. A luxury development was being planned in the area. My ranch sat in the path of expansion. They were offered what they called a generous purchase price and encouraged me to act quickly. I set the letter down, thought about my father, and wrote back one word. No. I assumed that would settle it. I was wrong. A week later, Karen Whitmore pulled up to my gate in a black luxury SUV. She was the HOA president, polished, confident, wearing a smile that looked like it had been practiced in a mirror. She talked about the development like it was a gift to the region, opportunity, progress, community investment. She encouraged me to reconsider. I told her my answer hadn't changed. The smile disappeared. On her way out, she said I was making a mistake. The way she said it didn't sound like concern. It sounded like a warning. I should have trusted that instinct immediately. Within days, things started happening around the property. Survey markers appeared along my fence lines, placed without my permission, without notice, without any legal basis. Unfamiliar vehicles began parking near my property for long stretches, occupants just watching. Expensive SUVs with tinted windows rolled slowly past the entrance, stopped, then left. I noticed. I didn't react. I watched. Then one morning I found a section of fence damaged, not from weather, not from animals. Deliberate. That night, my security cameras caught several people moving through my property in the dark. They didn't steal anything. They didn't need to. The message was a point. We can get to you. Instead of feeling threatened, I felt something clarify inside me. I upgraded every camera on the property, added motion sensors across the perimeter, backup recording equipment, cloud storage for all footage. I started a documentation log. Every incident, every vehicle, every timestamp. What began as a few notes in a notebook became a thick, organized folder with dates, photographs, and video evidence. A retired sheriff who lived down the road stopped by one afternoon. He'd heard things were getting tense. Over coffee, he told me bluntly, when serious development money is in play, land disputes stop being polite quickly. He told me to trust my instincts and document everything. I was already ahead of him. Around the same time, I started digging into the development project itself through public records. What I found reframed everything. This wasn't a neighborhood expansion. The HOA was connected to a massive commercial development deal worth tens of millions of dollars. My ranch, specifically my ranch, was the final parcel they needed to complete it. Without my land, the entire project couldn't move forward. Suddenly, Karen's persistence made sense. The vehicles made sense. The fence made sense. I wasn't dealing with an overzealous HOA board. I was the last obstacle between a group of people and a very large payday. The pressure didn't stop. It escalated. Late one evening, motion sensors fired near one of my storage barns. Cameras captured individuals entering the property, moving through quickly and leaving. This time the footage was sharp enough to matter. I handed everything to the county sheriff's office. For the first time, deputies started treating this like what it was. Meanwhile, Karen was still showing up at HOA meetings, talking about community improvement and neighborhood values, deflecting any questions about the development project with the ease of someone who'd rehearsed the deflections. But cracks were forming. A homeowner approached me quietly after one meeting. He'd seen financial documents, unusual expenditures tied to the development, approvals that didn't follow normal board procedure, payments to consultants nobody could identify. He was nervous sharing it. I thanked him and went back to the records. The deeper I looked, the more connections appeared. Contractors, consultants, and HOA officials whose relationships with each other and with the development project weren't disclosed to residents. Financial patterns that raised serious questions about who was actually driving decisions and who stood to profit. Then came the document that changed everything. A source I won't name provided records from a closed HOA planning session, internal communications, explicit and specific, laying out exactly how central my property was to the deal and discussing strategies for pressuring me into selling. It wasn't subtext anymore. It was in writing. I walked into the investigator's office with everything organized, labeled, and chronologically documented. This time, they weren't just listening. They were building a case. The community started waking up on its own. Residents who had heard rumors began filing public records requests. Journalists picked up the thread. Investigators, now actively working the case, uncovered communications connecting key figures across the HOA board to the development's financial backers. The picture that emerged wasn't just overreach. It was coordinated, deliberate, and hidden from the very homeowners the board was supposed to represent. At the next HOA meeting, the room was different. Residents came with questions, specific ones, about finances, about contracts, about who had approved what and when. Karen and several board members sat at the front of the room and had no good answers. The confidence that had defined her since the moment she showed up at my gate was gone. She looked like someone realizing, for the first time, that the walls were closing. Within weeks, multiple board members resigned. Investigations continued. Reporters kept digging. And the vehicles stopped coming. The fence line stayed quiet. The midnight activity disappeared. The pressure that had consumed months of my life simply ended, not with confrontation, not with a dramatic standoff, but with the slow, grinding way of evidence doing what evidence does when you give it enough time. I stood on my porch one evening as the sun dropped behind the ridge, and I looked out across the land my father left me. Same fence lines, same pasture, same sky. They had every resource advantage. Money, lawyers, political connections, a coordinated campaign designed to make me feel isolated and overwhelmed. What they didn't account for was simple. I wasn't going anywhere, and I wasn't going to stop paying attention. Karen Whitmore and the people behind her made a calculated bet that I would fold under pressure. Instead, every move they made became another entry in my documentation log. Every escalation became more evidence. They built the case against themselves, one suspicious vehicle and one midnight trespass at a time. My father's ranch is still standing. And sometimes that's the whole story.